One of the interesting aspects of Australian culture is what's known as the tall poppy syndrome, which is where, typical Aussies talk negatively about other Aussies who have achieved public success. Now, most of the time it's because the successful person excessively promote themselves as being better than others. But there are occasions when an Aussie is successful and they're humble about it, or they're modest about their accomplishments, and yet there's still a tendency to want to drag them down. Why is that? And friends, last week we finished with Jesus raising Jairus' daughter to life, and the words of Jesus that reminded us that faith in him brings peace in life. Well, today we pick up the narrative with Jesus experiencing firsthand what we could say is the tall poppy syndrome. Mark chapter 6 verse 2. When the Sabbath came, Jesus began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. Where does this man get these things, they said? What is this wisdom that has been given to him, and how are these miracles performed by his hands? Isn't this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? And aren't his sisters here with us? So they were offended by him. And Jesus said to them, only in his hometown, among his relatives, and in his own house is a prophet without honour. He could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. Now, Jesus' words are quite pointed. Up until this point, we've seen Jesus rejected by the Pharisees and the Herodians who are plotting to kill him. We've seen Jesus rejected by the teachers of the law in the community of Gerasene, where he healed the man with a legion of demons. And now, Jesus tells us that in his hometown, among his extended family, and even in his immediate family, he is being rejected. But what's interesting is that because of their lack of faith, Jesus was unable to do any serious miracles. Now, I don't think this means that Jesus couldn't do miracles. He could if he wanted to, I'm sure. But I do think it means that Jesus chose not to do miracles in his hometown because the people, at least at this time, are hard-hearted. They cannot see Jesus as the Son of God. They cannot see Jesus as the Christ. All they see is the neighbour's boy who grew up into a carpenter, and so Jesus makes a decision to withdraw his hand from them. Now, the contrast here between the woman who was bleeding, Jairus that we read about last week, and Jesus' hometown is quite stark. And what we're seeing are two perspectives on faith. Okay, we see faith that results in changed lives, and a lack of faith that results in a life continuing along as it always has. Now, that doesn't mean that a changed life in this world will result in wealth and good health, because as the passage continues, we read about John the Baptist, who is killed simply because a 15-year-old girl does a nice dance and pleases King Herod, who promises to give her anything that she wants. And it's a sad death, almost a worthless death. And yet it's a reminder to us that this life is not what we live for. Success in this life is not what we live for. Boasting about your achievements or popularity is not what we live for. We live for Jesus and the promotion of his kingdom. We live for Jesus with the goal of pleasing him. We live for Jesus because he died and suffered the judgment for our sins on himself so that we can rise from the dead and live for eternity. Okay, Jesus was dishonoured in his hometown by men and women who were hard-hearted, but we live to honour Jesus because he has softened our heart to the truth of his word. And so, friends, with that in mind, take a minute to consider two people from your hometown, and then spend a minute praying that God will soften the heart of those two people so that they will come to know Jesus as we do.